We'll begin in South Africa, where the highest court has found the president violated the constitution. Jacob Zuma spent $16 million refurbishing his private residence. The ruling was a unanimous one by 11 judges, and they found the National Assembly had also breached the constitution when it tried to exonerate the president. Let's speak now to Tania, who's live for us in Johannesburg. This is an unprecedented case in South African politics, isn't it, Tania?
Oh, absolutely. And the Chief Justice who delivered the ruling in front of 11 Constitutional Court judges, their decision unanimous as well, said that it was profoundly important to the strength of South Africa's constitutional democracy and that the people of South Africa could feel renewed confidence in the structures of not only government but also in the structures of the bodies that are, like the public protector, are deemed to act as watchdogs on those guilty or allegedly guilty of corruption. With me to talk a little bit more about this is political analyst Ayesha Kajee. We've heard a lot of opposition parties talking about impeachment, and pay back the money. Many scandals the president's been embroiled in. Is this the beginning of the end for him?
Well, the beginning of the end, but not quite his deathbed yet, I think, given that the ANC electoral conference is only next year, and it's unlikely that the ANC will recall him before then, despite motions to impeach the president. The opposition, even cumulatively, do not have sufficient numbers in parliament to impeach the president, and we know from previous attempts that the ANC will not allow a secret ballot. If it did, there might perhaps be sufficient numbers of ANC MPs who were so disgusted or repulsed by what the president has done that they might actually vote to impeach him. That is highly unlikely. So while he is in his death throes, the deathbed is probably still to come.
But the president's come out in a statement and saying he notes and respects the Constitutional Court judgment, but he's going to go away and consider the implications and decide on the next step forward. Perhaps not the response many were hoping for.
Absolutely, because it seems to show a certain level of arrogance, almost a belief that he is above the law and the supreme law of the country. The Constitutional Court has spoken. It has said that he has to pay back some of the money. It's a legal and binding court order. The president should be saying, yes, I respect that and I will abide by it. Not I'll go and consider it and decide what to do.
This isn't, of course, just about the politics, the judiciary, the country's elite. This is about how millions of ordinary South Africans are affected by these sorts of scandals and the actions of the president. What must they be thinking today?
Well, I think many of them will be heaving a sigh of relief that the judiciary is still independent in this country and that it has had the nous to actually act or judge against both the president and to lambaste the National Assembly, the parliament of the country, for not doing their jobs, for not living up to their constitutional obligations. On the other hand, many people in the country have suffered as a result of the reputational damage, not only to the president and to the ruling party, but also to South Africa. We've seen the currency drop, we've seen tourism numbers drop, we've seen business confidence dropping. All of that contributes to a state of underdevelopment in the lives of many South Africans that basically will be impacted by this because they may lose their jobs, or they may find that inflation rises, they may find that food and other commodity prices become unaffordable for them. So all of these things are a direct result in certain ways of the reputational damage that South Africa has suffered as a result of scandals of this nature.
So the key question, are the voters going to lay the blame at the foot of the president and the ANC and vote against them in the local body elections?
I think in the urban areas and amongst the young, the youth vote definitely. However, the majority of South African voters are rural voters. They do live outside the major centres, and those voters are still loyal to the ANC, partly because it's still seen as the party of liberation, and partly because many of them don't just ally that party with Mr. Zuma, but see it as the party of Tambo and Mandela and Sisulu, etc., who were their heroes. The other reason, of course, is that there is still no viable alternative in many citizens' minds to the ANC. The opposition parties that have arisen have got small pockets of support here and there, perhaps quite regionally based support, and the vast majority of the South African electorate still sees the ANC as the only possible alternative for it, unfortunately. So it's up to the ANC now to decide whether it wants to salvage the president or whether it wants to salvage the party. And if it wants to salvage the party, it must take appropriate action now.
So in 6 months' time, is this going to be just added to the list of scandals the president's faced?
I think so. I think what we'll see in the local government elections is we'll see that the ANC will lose some of its urban support nodes, particularly in places like Gauteng, and perhaps even in places such as the Northern Province and Northwest, where Mr. Malema has quite a following. Certainly we'll see a decrease in support for the ANC, but not a sufficient decrease to really severely knock the confidence of the ANC that it is still the party in power.
Political analyst Ayesha Kajee, thank you very much for joining with us. To be continued, as they say.